Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'd like to address some of the narcissist communication styles and the different things that they do when they're communicating with you that are particularly frustrating, but also, in my opinion, the very first and number one way to identify that you're dealing with a narcissist. For me personally, after all the narcissists that I've come across, when I compile them all in my head, they've all shared these traits, if not all of them, quite a few of them. And now it's a very good filter for me when I meet new people. I can automatically identify a narcissist. I'm like, oh yeah, you're one of them. And now I can avoid them. Whereas in the past, I might have been drawn in. Now I'm so much better able to avoid these people and refuse to allow them to latch on to me. And it saves me a lot of time, effort, energy, thought, all that. So here we go. Here's the first one. When you're talking to a narcissist, it's always a one-sided monologue on their end. They do not share the common communication dynamics of conversation, the back and forth, the tennis match. They never ask questions about your life. If they do, it's random and maybe they saw it on TV or something, but they don't really inquire within. They're not really concerned about your life. They really don't know much about you. If they were to take one of those quizzes, how well do you know your friend or your family member or whomever, they would fail it miserably because they really don't ask and they really don't care. When you're talking to a narcissist, it's always one-sided and it's a monologue. All you're really there to do is listen. You're there to be an audience member. You're there to laugh at their jokes. You're there to make them feel good about themselves. And when they're done, they typically end the conversation or get off the phone. If you're in person, they typically break contact in terms of eye contact and do something like look at their phone or go to the bathroom, or once they're done, they're done. They don't then turn it to you and say, so how are you doing? What's going on your job? How are your kids? How's your family doing? They don't do that because they're not interested. It's not about you. The second thing they do, if you're involved in a deeper relationship with a narcissist, let's say you're married or you're dating, or this is an employee-boss situation or something like that, when real issues come up and real issues need to be addressed, generally they will refuse to address issues with you. They will not talk about it. And this is one of the most frustrating things about them. They never, sometimes people get frustrated and they need time to cool off, but they'll come back and they'll revisit the conversation. They'll have the conversation and then they try to change. Everyone agrees to change something, or there's some type of agreement moving forward. When you're dealing with a narcissist, they refuse to be real with you. They refuse to be authentic with you. They refuse to let you be authentic with them. When real issues come up, and this kind of goes into the point number 3, they tend to shut down the conversation. So they shut down the conversation in many ways. Sometimes they just flat out shut it down. They stop talking. They stop participating. You can stand there and talk, but they're not saying anything. Sometimes they'll look at you blank. Sometimes they won't look at you at all. They'll leave the room. They'll leave the house. They'll hang up. They'll stop texting back, whatever. However you're communicating, they'll literally shut down the conversation. Another way that they shut down the conversation is just talking over you, talking on top of you, won't let you get your words out. Sometimes they'll call you dramatic. They'll say you're being so filled with drama right now. You're drama filled. Why are you always so dramatic? Why are you always so negative? And here's the thing. Even if you really are a negative person, which you probably aren't, but let's just play devil's advocate here. Even if you are a negative person, hypercritical, super sensitive, someone who's not a narcissist will be able to discuss that with you. They'll say, listen, I'm trying to get you to understand how you come across as very critical. When we went to the restaurant, we were there to have a nice time, and everything was perfect, and you complained about the color of the tablecloth, and not only did you complain about it, you complained about it loudly, and you brought it to the waiter's attention, and it was too much. It was critical of something that didn't matter. The food was great. Everyone was there to have a good time. We were trying to enjoy ourselves, and you really kind of messed up the experience by criticizing something so small. Rational, reasonable people discuss things. They talk about it. So even if you are being negative, even if you are being dramatic, they're going to talk to you about it. They're going to try to get you to see how, so the behavior can change because your behavior is impacting the environment. A narcissist is just saying those things to you to get you to leave them alone when you're calling them out on their behavior. That's the difference. Okay? So they shut down the conversation, or they'll delay it endlessly. I don't want to talk about this right now. I don't want to talk about this right now. I want to talk about this later. And later never comes. And you can keep bringing it up. They're going to brush you off. They're going to try to get you to think about something else because they don't want to talk about it ever. So later never comes. So that's one of their techniques. Number 4, this one particularly really burns me up. They interrupt you a lot. A lot. They just have a tendency to just talk over you and take over the conversation. Now, a lot of people are very hyper. They're hyperactive people. So they kind of jump in because they're so excitable and they have a tough time keeping a lid on it. But they still are actively participating in the conversation. So their excitement is overriding them and they're jumping in and cutting you off, but they're still giving you the floor. Narcissists jump in, cut you off, and now it's their floor and they don't ever give it back. A lot of friends, super close friends, have really deep communication dynamics where it's anyone's court at any time. It's bouncing back and forth. It's here, it's there. But everyone feels heard and it feels very balanced still. No matter how wild the ride is, it still feels balanced. Narcissists just cut you off because they really don't care to hear what you have to say. They really just want the floor. They want the attention on them, or they're bored. They brush you off. They kind of dismiss you. And you feel dismissed even if you don't have the words to call it dismissal. You feel dismissed. Okay? So far, one-sided monologues. They refuse to discuss issues. They shut down conversations. They interrupt a lot. And here, number 5, they don't listen. They just flat out don't listen. And it's a very rude behavior. I feel like narcissists and rudeness go hand in hand. I feel like they're either close cousins or they're brother and sister, but they don't listen to you. So over the phone, the way you know they're not listening is they're not answering questions that they're being asked by you. They're not responding in a way that someone who's listening would respond. So let's just say you said to them, hey, I was in a lotto pool at work and we won $50,000. Can you believe it? And they'd be like, uh-huh. And you'd be like, hello, we won 50 grand. Isn't that cool? What? Oh, you won the lottery? Like, they're not listening. They're not processing. They're not actively participating in the conversation. Usually they're playing on their phone. They're reading something. They're doing something else, but they're not listening to you. And it's very rude. And it's very dismissing of a person to not listen to them because it says your words don't matter. Basically, you don't matter. Your humanity doesn't matter. Who you are doesn't matter to me at all. I'm just here waiting for you to stop talking so I can start talking about myself again. Number 6, they repeat themselves a lot. And this is for several reasons. One, narcissists really don't think very much. They're not very thoughtful people. They don't enjoy thinking. So in order to produce original content, you have to kind of think sometimes. What happens is the narcissist kind of gets caught in a thought loop that tends to work for them. So it's almost like a script. It's almost like an extended elevator speech. And they just kind of tell the same stories over and over again, usually stories of glory where they were the hero, but they just don't record conversations. They just like to hear their mouth move. So most of us, we can mistakenly tell someone the same story that we've already told, but something in us usually triggers and goes, have I told you this already? That's what normal people do, because normal people remember, hey, I think I told her this already. And they check in and the person will say, no, you haven't. Or, yeah, I think you told me this the other day, but something in you triggers, I've told the story already. Narcissists not only don't have that trigger, but even if it did trigger, they don't care. They're going to tell you again because they think they're that interesting. They're very sold on themselves. So, number 7, when it's your turn to have the floor, they become immediately bored. Immediately bored. If you're face to face in person, you can totally see it in their body language. And I think one of the most telling signs is they'll look at you and then you'll kind of catch their eyes wandering off and then they'll come back to you. Now, if you're in a big social atmosphere where there's lots of people walking by and there's a lot going on, that might be kind of normal, but you can tell the difference where it's almost like they're just like, okay, all right, yeah, oh, look at that seagull. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm here. They're not really listening. They're not really present. They don't really care to hear what you have to say. And it's just so rude and dismissing. And you try to attribute it to, people try to write it off as, oh, they just have ADD or ADHD, which may be true, but it's not. We know that it's not. They have narcissism. They have narcissistic personality disorder. And they're bored by you. They're bored by you even if you're telling an interesting story, but they're especially bored by you if you're telling a story of your success. So if you're sharing a promotion with them or something very exciting or something really, really great that's happening to you, they're not all that excited for you because it's not happening to them. And if it's something better than they've done or achieved or accomplished, then they're really going to want you to shut up because it's triggering their jealousy and their envy. They're very jealous, envious people. When it's your turn to have the floor, they're very, very bored automatically, and they lose interest in the conversation, and they're re-energized when the conversation returns back to them. Finally, they expect you to either maintain the relationship or they completely drive it. So here's what that looks like. If they expect you to maintain the relationship, they'll be like, I haven't heard from you in forever. Why haven't you called me? Why haven't you texted me? Why haven't you reached out? Why haven't we hung out? Let's hang out. Let's go to lunch. They expect you to do all the work because if they're healthy, functioning human beings, they have the ability to reach out to you as well. So they can call you too. They can text you too. They can email, they can reach out to you as well. You don't have to do all the work. So say, for example, you don't reach out to them for a day or two. When you finally do, or if they finally reach out, which they may or may not, they'll be like, hey, stranger. And it's weird because you're like, you can call me too, though. Like, in their mind, it's your job to maintain the relationship. Now, here's the flip side of that coin. Real narcissists who are real high on the narcissist food chain or ruler, they will maintain the relationship and they care not whether or not you are actively participating. It's very weird, actually. So they'll actually do all the calling. They sometimes won't give you an opportunity to reach out to them. So they'll either text you every morning on the dot. Good morning, 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 or they'll send you something every morning that requires a response. Now, if you're enjoying it and this is how you guys banter and it's not a sick person that you're dealing with, then that's fine. But the reason the narcissist does it is because they know if they don't, you won't. So it's one side of the coin or the other. So they'll maintain the relationship to make sure that you're always responding to them. Or you'll go long periods of time without speaking to them, and then they'll reach out and just kind of pick back up. And it's weird because what's missing is the acknowledgement of the time that's elapsed. And it's almost like they don't care that you don't have a real relationship. All they care about is that you pick up the phone and that you'll hang out with them or you'll spend time with them or whatever when they want you to. So healthy people, when the relationship is not really there, when it starts to feel forced, healthy people just kind of drift away from the relationship and go their separate ways. I'm sure all of you have someone in your life or people in your life who you just kind of grew apart, but there was no ill intent, there was no maliciousness there was no fight, no fallout. You just kind of went your own separate way. And if you were to reach out to that person again, there would be some type of acknowledgement of the fact that you haven't spoken in a while. How you doing? What's been going on? How have you been? But a narcissist just calls you up after a year and starts talking to you as if no time has passed at all. It's very bizarre behavior. It'll strike you as bizarre. And that's how you know you're dealing with a narcissist. So those are the communication styles. At work, if I were to run through the same bullets real quick, if your boss is a narcissist, they rarely will let you speak. They will rarely let you defend yourself. They do all the talking, so that's the one-sided monologue. Meetings with a narcissist boss are nightmarish. Anytime you bring up real issues with a narc boss, they will get really angry, really defensive. They'll shut down the conversations just like everyone else. Narcissistic bosses tend to interrupt you a lot. They rarely will let you get a complete thought out before they're right back in there running their agenda. They definitely don't listen to you, mainly because they're always talking. Narc bosses repeat themselves a lot, and they love to repeat policy. So you can't get them to reflect on anything real, but they'll quote the HR policy manual word for word. So they're good at that kind of stuff. So they'll always bring that up when they can't come up with anything else. They definitely become bored when it's your turn to talk. You can tell they're not listening. They're tapping their pen. They're checking their phone, whatever. And as far as maintaining the relationship, it's kind of naturally maintained just by the work setting. So, that one doesn't really apply, but I just wanted to slide those in there because so much communication happens at the workplace, and this really comes up with narcissistic bosses as well. So be on the lookout for those traits. To me, it's the immediate and first red flag. And now that I've studied this long enough, been exposed to it long enough, and I'm healing from the abuse from these people, as soon as I see it, I flee. So I hope that eventually you get to that place. But I thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more videos to come. Thanks, guys.